Hello, and this is Spotlight, and this time round, we're going to be discussing Rotterdam 2021 and the pandemic. And the question being, did the Dutch get it right? And joining me is Kevin Sherwin. And Kevin is from Aberdeen, which is just up the road. And he's been a member of the Eurovision press corps for centuries, isn't that right?
Well, my first accreditation was 2003.
Uh-huh.
So that was the first sort of delve into behind the scenes, what was going on. And since 2010, I've been working with the Romanians.
Yeah. 2003, what was that? That was the Latvian?
Latvia, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. But how many contests have you actually been to,
20,
before?
22. That's my 22nd.
And what was your first one?
My first one was 1994. I had to wear a dinner suit.
It's so
and that was the year we had Riverdance.
That's right. Yeah, and it was very, very much dinner suits and ball gowns, and yeah, it's totally changed now. But Kevin, one of the first things I was going to say to you. I mean, how long have you been following the Eurovision Song Contest in total?
I think I can vaguely remember Cliff Richard in black and white singing "Congratulations," and that means I would have been about 7 years old. Which would probably about right. I can remember a few times in the late 60s and early 70s watching it. And I remember one year, actually, my mother was flicking between the Eurovision Song Contest and Mutiny on the Bounty, which was the movie on the other side. And I was like, get back to the music.
I can imagine the pain of watching that. But okay, let's just delve straight into this, okay? Because you obviously had to go to another country. What were the restrictions in the Netherlands compared to what you were used to in Scotland? Was it tougher? Was it easier? Or
it was really, really easy. Mm-hmm. Obviously, in order to leave the United Kingdom, because we were leaving before the 17th of May, we went out on the 8th of May, which basically means that you couldn't actually travel unless you had a genuine reason to travel. Mm-hmm. So I had to fill in my declaration to leave the United Kingdom, and basically you put on it work. Now you can work somewhere if you can't work from home, so I couldn't obviously cover the Eurovision Song Contest from Aberdeen, so that was my excuse to get out the country. I had to show that at St Pancras because I took the Eurostar, plus I had to get my COVID test, which had to be valid within 72 hours. So that was the two things that I had to show. Now, to get into the Netherlands, we were told we had to show our accreditation acceptance email. Nobody asked for that at all. So they weren't really that concerned. Mm-hmm. At St Pancras, basically, what you do is you go through British passport control at St Pancras, and you go through the Dutch passport control at the same place, within like 20 feet of one another. They didn't even ask why I was going into the Netherlands. You were supposed to self-isolate for 10 days if you travelled to the Netherlands. Obviously, we were exempt because we were working at the Eurovision Song Contest. Got off the train at Rotterdam, and it would just be like getting off on number 6 bus in the main street. Nobody really batted an eyelid. So getting into the easy.
Yeah, but with the shops open, was there tourists? Wasn't a lockdown of senses? Was it compared to what we had in the UK? I mean,
there was a lockdown. Everything closed at 8 o'clock for sitting outside. Now there was a very nice little Happy Italy pizza place that we used to go to, and as soon as 8 o'clock came, you sat outside. You couldn't eat inside. As soon as 8 o'clock came, that was it. Here's your bill. Thank you. Good night. Off you go. If you were there 2 minutes past 8, they were really, really strict.
Yeah.
Get out here. Sort of. We sat down with a takeaway McDonald's one night outside McDonald's at 20 past 8, and we were sort of shooed away by the manager. He says, you can go and sit around the corner beside the river, but you can't sit here. Really, really. So they're obviously guided by what the police, what the government say. So no, they were very, very strict on that.
Well, it's very interesting you've said that, because one of the key things with Eurovision and it being hosted for a week is that you have a lot of fans attending and you have a lot of activities going on. The Euro club usually is bouncing. I take it all that was non-existent this year.
There was there was no Euro Club. There was no Euro Village. The Euro Village was actually online. It was a sort of you go online, fake Euro Village. I can't remember the word that they used. But you go online, you can watch people performing in a sort of glorified village. But no, there was no village. There was actually a trip laid on for the press and the accredited journalists and the artists. They gave us a tour of Rotterdam, which ended up on the top of Shell's offices, where we got a glass of wine and some nice sandwiches. So that was nice.
Yeah.
I did personally. You see that it said in the small print that the artists had to stay in their hotels unless they were traveling to the arena.
Right.
Now, some of the artists obeyed by that rules. Some of them didn't. I'm not going to mention the names of the ones that didn't. But it did say that press had the opportunity to travel anywhere in the Netherlands.
Right.
I think what they wanted is to visit places and say how marvelous the Netherlands is. So we write about it, and then people think, "Oh, I'll go there for a holiday." So we had a day trip to Amsterdam, which was nice, but it rained.
But the thing is, though, it seems like that. I mean, you've touched on what I'm going to ask you next. I mean, how different was this song contest in Rotterdam to everything you've seen before? I mean, you've touched on it already. I mean, it must have been almost surreal not having the Euro Club, not having people mingling, and obviously the artists not mingling. Did it feel surreal at all to you?
To be perfectly honest, it didn't. You know, if you was to say to me, was it completely different from the previous 21 contests? And I would say, no, not really. I don't really go to the Euro Club. I'm one of these people that's stuck to bed at 10 o'clock at night anyway. Some of my friends are there at 5 o'clock in the morning. So, you know, it didn't bother me at all that there was no Euro Club. What we noticed that was different when we got off the tube, or the metro, as they call it there, right in front of you, the accreditation centre. Easy to find. We go to the accreditation centre. We get our little accreditation badge there. So you hand them the email and a copy of your passport to prove who you are. They hand you your accreditation badge, but you can't go into the press centre yet. What you've then got to do is go next door to a big white tent and get your COVID test.
Now, tell me about that, because that was one thing I was going to ask you. So you get a COVID test. Tell me what that COVID test is all about and how quickly you got the results.
Right. There's two different types of COVID tests. You go in, they scan your badge, and that's linked to an email address. So then there's two types. There's the one where you just breathe into a tube, and it literally tells you there and then if you're okay or you're not okay. 3 times, because we had to get tested every 48 hours. So 3 times I managed to pass the breathing test. Sometimes it didn't work. Sometimes it was too high. So then they do the quick antigen test, which basically is cotton bud right up your right nose. Put it around for 3 seconds, and I can assure you 3 seconds is an awful long time when someone's twiddling around there. It wasn't really so much sore. It was just sort of a niggly inconvenience. So what they do is they send that away. You're going to have a seat in the waiting room. Everything's done there, so it doesn't have far to go. 15, 20 minutes, you'll get an email saying negative. Sometimes there was 25,000 people had tested over the 2 weeks, and there were only 16 positive tests. And that 16 were basically people who had just arrived from another country. So it wasn't really circulating in the arena. So you get your negative email. Then you go to the front desk again. You show them the email, and then you scan this, and that gives you access for 48 hours. So you go into the press centre. A huge press centre, just the same as what it's been like for the last 10, 15, 20 years. But the only difference is that you're allocated a table, and that's your table for 2 weeks. So you go in, you give them your accreditation badge, they give you a little chitty, they write down your table number, you sit at that table, and at the end of the day, you hand the chitty back to the woman at the desk. She then gets somebody to go and fumigate the table and clean it for the next day. Now, if you're sitting at the table, you don't have to wear a mask. You do if you're walking around the arena. And there is a lot of, I mean, it must have cost Rotterdam a fortune on volunteers or security.
Really?
I don't know if they were paying them or not, because there were hundreds of them, and they kept saying, "Oh no, 1.5 meters distance, 1.5 meters distance."
Yeah.
I mean, I was there with my partner, and we couldn't even sit next to each other at the rehearsals. And I'm thinking, but we live together.
Yeah.
We can't sit next to each other. I think they were just erring in the side of caution.
Yeah.
They were obviously being told what to do, and they were just following the instructions by the book, basically.
And was there a lot of people there this year at the press centre, or what did you find it was certainly a lot more muted?
There was supposed to be 500 accredited journalists. I mean, it was a lot quieter, but I would have said it was probably just about this same people that's been going for the last number of years. I mean, there was a lot of faces that I recognised. But what I did notice, there was a lack of people from Eastern Europe. There was nobody from Moldova. There was nobody from the Czech Republic. I didn't see anybody from Russia at all, journalists. Italians, plenty of them, Cypriots, Greek. But you were only allowed 10 accredited journalists per country. Now, fortunately, because I'm working for Romania, there's only about 4 go in a normal year. So it was never a problem that I would get accredited anyway. So that was handy. There was nobody there from the United Kingdom whatsoever.
Really? Is that,
I think it was,
yeah.
Well, it was to do with the travel ban. You couldn't leave the country until the 17th. Actually, that's a lie. There was one other person that was there from the United Kingdom. I think he sneaked in under cover of darkness, and he actually got accredited through the Czech Republic.
Right.
Because he's gone to 30 Eurovision Song Contests. Yeah. I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want to, in case he's done anything illegal, I don't want to get him into any trouble.
Yeah.
But he's been to 30, and he took the ferry across, and he got his accreditation, and he basically did the same. So he was the only other person from the United Kingdom that was there.
And since you came back from Holland, or from the Netherlands, I should say, have you had to do anything different? Have you had to self-isolate or anything like that? You're able just to get on with things, or what's the restrictions and all that?
We had a COVID test. This is a strange thing because we filled in our form to come back. And because our proper jobs is public service vehicle drivers, we're actually exempt. And the woman at the train station in the Netherlands agreed with that. She said, yeah, you're exempt. But we had to get a COVID test 2 days after we came back, which we did, which was negative. But nobody's came knocking on my door saying, can I have a look at your COVID test? So, we didn't need to have a COVID test. Nobody's been knocking at the door saying, well, you need to do this, need to do that. So I don't know if there's different rules for Scotland or England.
Do you think that this is an example of perhaps confusion with what's happening with these tests and with the procedures and stuff like that? It's very interesting what you're saying about it was a little bit more lax than you thought it was going to be when you went to the Netherlands. And it's been like that as well when you've come back. You expected to perhaps be challenged on your test, and it hasn't happened. I mean, does that surprise you?
No, it doesn't. But the other Englishman who was there from down South England, he had 3 text messages, test and trace, since he's came back, and he's done the same. He has his COVID test as well. So they're maybe chasing him more in England than in Scotland. We did obviously have to have our COVID test before we were allowed back on the train at Rotterdam. We got that 72 hours before we had to leave Rotterdam. So that came through as negative. And then of course we had tickets for the live show as well on the Saturday night. Now what I found strange was that if you had an accreditation, you were not allowed to go into the live shows on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then go back into the press centre until after the Saturday. I think they didn't want people mixing with the press. I don't know, strange sort of rules. But I know for a fact there was a lot of accredited journalists. who broke the rules, went to the live shows on the Tuesday and the Thursday, and were seen back in the press centre.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
We obviously went to the live show on the Saturday night, but we didn't need to go back to the press centre after that anyway, so we weren't breaking any rules. If you had tickets for the live shows, it's this thing that they're doing now in the Netherlands. You have to get a COVID test in the morning of the live show, and obviously bring that to the hall when you go in at night. If you're tested, if you get an email saying you're positive, they won't let you in. Obviously, if you've got a negative test, then they let you in. You've got to have that. You've got to have your passport to prove that you are, and obviously your tickets. Inside the arena, 3,500 fans, basically just sitting right next to each other, which I found really, really strange. I thought they would have spaced them out, because there was some areas that was empty, and there were some areas, the whole rows were just all taken up. So, but then of course everybody had been COVID tested that morning, so everybody was negative.
Right. Well, one of the things I was going to say, have you actually watched the show back from a television point of view since you've returned to Scotland?
I never do.
You never do?
Purely because I've heard the song so many times.
Yeah.
I'm almost sick of hearing the songs.
I was just curious.
No, I never watch.
I was curious just to see if it looked different to what you actually experienced being in like the hall, because for me, I thought it was a really, really well presented show. I thought it was well put together, and I actually thoroughly enjoyed it this year. I thought the music was great as well. But I thought that the Dutch had done really, really well with the presentation, and it didn't. Obviously, we all knew watching it that there were, obviously COVID restrictions, but it didn't come across like that. And I just was curious as to what you would have experienced watching it live and then watching it from a television point of view.
I know the atmosphere on the night in the arena was just as good as any other Eurovision Song Contest. And in fact, what we lacked in numbers, I think we made up for in enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Because I was a bit concerned that because there might be some locals that go along and think it's a night out, we'll just go there and put our feet up and enjoy it, and we won't get involved in it. But no, it was full of Eurovision fans, dressed as outrageous as ever. They still managed to get in. No flags, but they still managed to squeeze their flags in.
I totally agree with you. It came across. It seemed to be, for me, a much closer camaraderie than perhaps we've seen. Everybody was in this together. Again, you can tell me how it felt being in the press centre, if it felt as if, there was some sort of relief that this contest was taking place, that it was a bigger message going out to the public rather than just the fact it's a song contest. It's a massive event. Europe's come together, perhaps for the first time, really, if you think about it. I don't think any other event has actually been able to do that. This was a big moment for all of us, not only those who were there, but also watching. And I felt also the whole situation with James Newman getting the nul point, and he stood up and everybody gave him a round of applause. That summed up to me that there seemed to be a real closeness about this contest. Is that how you experienced it this year? Did you feel that kind of warmth?
I'm glad you brought that up, because the green room was actually on the floor, where they would have normally been standing.
That's right, yeah.
And every artist, while the votes were coming in, every artist was getting up, running to their neighbours and hugging them and kissing them. I actually took a wee video, because social distancing was completely out the window then. Mind you, by that time, they'd had a few drinks.
Yeah.
But, I mean, really, Eurovision was invented in 1956 to unite Europe after the war, and it certainly did that on the night, because they really were a close family. Every country was hugging each other country. There was the Norwegian singer, the guy with the angels. He was completely off his head, and he was running around the green room hugging everyone. The San Marino girl was very, very nice. She did a personal message to me, because the Romanians couldn't go to the red carpet.
Right.
Because of one of the people in their hotel was tested positive, and as a precaution, everybody that stayed in that hotel couldn't leave for 48 hours.
What, is this the Romanian delegation?
Well, what it was it the Polish?
Yeah, it was the Polish. Because I was actually going to bring
Iceland.
this up. Yeah, you had Poland, you had the Polish delegation, and obviously then the Icelandic delegation having positive COVID tests, and then Duncan Lawrence was tested positive. I mean, when that news is filtered through, Kevin, did the mood change? Was there concerns? Was there a heightened fear, or that this thing could be cancelled?
There was actually. I think it was on the Saturday afternoon that we got an email from the organisers saying that somebody from the Polish delegation had tested positive, and because it wasn't because the Maltese and the Romanians were staying in the same hotel, none of them could go to the red carpet event. And I just thought to myself, oh, is this the beginning of the end? Is it going to spiral out of control? But then they were tested fine. They were tested negative. And then on the Thursday morning of the second semi-final, the poor Icelandic guy tested positive. So they couldn't, and I felt really sorry for him because he put a video on, and the guy was in tears. I mean, he was bringing tears to my eyes. He looked like a young guy, about 21, 22. He's wanted to perform at the Eurovision Song Contest, and he's got COVID, and he's sitting there saying, I can't perform live, and I'm really sorry. And what I thought was good was that the rest of the band thought, well, if you can't do it, we're not going to do it. So they just obviously used the rehearsal from the few days before. But it was so sad that Iceland couldn't perform. And I fingers crossed that maybe next year the Icelandic TV company will invite them back to represent Iceland in 2022. I hope they do. I really hope they do.
No, definitely. I totally agree with you on that. It's a fantastic show. I never knew that, to be honest with you. But again, it is summing up the whole camaraderie of what certainly came across on TV. And obviously, it was much closer when you're being there. But one thing I would say or ask you is this. Do you think, with there being fewer fans actually being able to travel to this contest, and it's being held in Rotterdam, do you think this has left a massive hole in the finances for the Dutch, which they are probably regretting? Or are they the total opposite and saying, yeah, we're proud to have done this?
A bit of both. I feel sorry for the people of Rotterdam because they'd waited, was it 733 days, I think somebody had quoted, to do this. And they tried to do the best they could. The whole city was just plastered in posters and Eurovision, this, that, and the other, as if they were expecting 20, 30,000 fans, but obviously there was only 3,500. And I spoke to somebody who was actually part of the organising committee, and they said that they wanted to go ahead and promote the city because people will probably look at it, and even if there is only 500 credited journalists there, hopefully they will write some good things, and people will come to Rotterdam. What they were saying is that they were hoping that this could be a stepping stone to have major conventions at the Ahoy Arena, not just song contests, but companies will think, oh well, we'll have our AGM at the Ahoy Arena because Rotterdam looks a nice city, and the Ahoy looks quite nice, and they're well organised. So that's what they were hoping for. But I think they must have been disappointed. 65 years of the Eurovision Song Contest, and they've got to do it on a sort of mini, and it must have cost them an awful lot of money. Right. It must have.
And then just summing up, because it's been fascinating speaking to you, Kevin. It always is, to be honest.
If it's one thing I enjoy, people say to me, what do you like about Eurovision? This. I love sitting and chatting. It might be the first of many, because I really want to tap into your stories. I love the fact that you've been to so many different contests. But let me just ask you one last question then. Where does Rotterdam sit with all the other contests that you've been? Where would you put this contest? Ooh. Well, people always say to me, what's your favorite destination? And I always say Kiev, in the Ukraine. There's something about the Ukraine that I don't know, I fell in love with in 2005 and then rekindled that in 2017. You're probably asking me to sort of say, if I had children, name your favorite child.
Yeah.
And I haven't had a bad Eurovision. I suppose Dusseldorf, when I got my mobile phone stolen, that's probably not one of the happiest times in my Eurovision. But no, I would say it's there. I can't really say there was a better one than this or a worse one than this. It was up there. But I tell you what I did think is I was probably the only Romanian journalist there, and I was doing a lot of work. And I was not only covering it for about 4 or 5 different Romanian sites on Facebook, I was doing it for the newspaper that I'm contracted to do. And I was also doing stuff for the OGay UK site as well. So, I was at the rehearsals, taking photographs. And once they'd finished, I'm downloading them onto my iPad and I'm typing in them and I'm sending the photographs before the next one comes on. So it was, from that point of view, really, really busy. And I felt like I was actually doing something for this Eurovision. I felt like I was a proper journalist. And the great thing was there was hundreds of people putting comments on Facebook. Nice pictures. Oh, this is good. Oh, no, we don't like that. Or what is she wearing? I'm thinking, these people are reading my comments and looking at my pictures. Yeah. And some of them are loving them. And some of them saying, no, that's a horrendous dress that she's wearing. I think, well, I'm only putting the pictures on. But to get that sort of feedback is really, really nice.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you certainly had your work cut out. But I take it you're going to Italy next year?
Well, every year I say it's going to be my last. And then we'll just see what happens. I mean, it all depends on if I get tickets. I've been really lucky to get tickets. Yeah. And I don't know if I would go if I didn't get tickets. But I'm a member of the fan club, the OGay fan club, so they normally get a fan package. So we'll just see how it all goes. There's one bit of gossip I can tell you is I don't think it will be in Rome, because the big arena in Rome has a Rotterdam musical booked for the 14th of May. I saw
that. I saw off your post, yeah.
Yes. So they think it's Turin or Milan is the favourites at the moment. And I must admit, I do like the winning song.
Yeah.
It's a real sort of head-banging sort of, you can play that in the car if you're feeling a bit down and fed up. And that will brighten you up.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm going to be doing a separate thing on UK, but let's just finish this with your quick summing up of the UK and what happened and what happens next.
Well, I predicted that they were going to get no points before the contest started, because what was going to happen, there was 10 countries that were at the top of the leaderboard. You had your Icelands, and you had your Lithuania, and you had Malta, and you had France, you had Switzerland. There was 10. And I thought, well, that 10 countries are going to get all the points, and they're going to leave nothing left for the other countries. That's why I wasn't surprised when the Netherlands and when Spain and when the United Kingdom all got 0 from the public. It's not to say that nobody picked up the phone and voted for them. They just didn't get enough votes to register, because everybody was voting for the Big 10. And don't get me started with, it's political. As I say, do you honestly think there's a granny sitting in Moldova thinking, I'm not going to vote for the United Kingdom because I don't like Boris Johnson? No, that's not going to happen. We just didn't send a decent enough song, and that's it. Now, I think maybe the people in the United Kingdom have lost the plot of what is a decent enough song. Maybe we still think Boom Bang a Bang and Puppet on a String is going to win. If you put them in these days, it probably wouldn't get much points either. So I don't know what we can do. We tried Engelbert Humperdinck, and he didn't do anything. We could get Sherwin.
I actually loved that song, though. I loved that song. It just was the wrong singer. It was the wrong singer. It was, unfortunately, it was the twilight of his career, and it came across with his voice. But I loved the song because it was actually written by an award-winning songwriter. I can't remember the guy's name, but I still love that song, but it just was the wrong package. And I think that's also another thing that the BBC seemed to be getting wrong, is the package. But we could talk about this. So I think what we need to do is we need to get you back, and we're going to have to discuss like other things about Eurovision, Kevin. So I hope you're up for that invite, because there's loads to talk about. Yeah, there's loads to talk about, and I'm going to be picking your brains because, but it was I just wanted to get certainly somebody's reaction from being at Rotterdam and going through the whole experience with COVID. I would say that the Dutch have done immensely well considering the situation. And I think that we're all thankful that we were able to have a song contest this year, because the camaraderie shone through. And what you've just said there just typifies what I was picking up. So what's your last summing up of Rotterdam?
Well, it was a relief. I think as soon as I got to the Ahoy Arena on the Saturday night, I did a little video, and I think I opened up with welcome to Rotterdam, welcome to the Ahoy, and with much more pleasure than I could ever imagine, welcome to the Eurovision Song Contest 2021. And I think just the emotion in my voice when I said that, was just, this is actually happening.
Oh, good.
And I was just so happy to be there.
Yeah.
There was no way I was going to watch it from the comfort of my own armchair. I needed to be there, and that was it. My summing up, Rotterdam's a nice city. It's a modern city. It rained a lot. We did get our free bus pass, so we can use that on the metro. So that saved me about €70 for the whole 2 weeks. I think the winner was good. It could have been anyone. I didn't want it to be France. I didn't want it to be Switzerland, purely because of the expense of going to that countries. Even Iceland would have been expensive. Lithuania would have been nice. But no, it's another Eurovision Song Contest. And I don't feel as depressed than I normally do on the Sunday when I get up after Eurovision, because I think another year before the next one. I think I'm just happy that that I was there. And just finally, there was an EBU press conference, and Martin Osterwald, I can't pronounce his name. Yeah. Somebody asked him, of all the problems, what did you think was going to be a problem that turned out not to be as big a problem? And he said, getting tested every 48 hours wasn't as big a problem as we thought. So that was that. But no, I'm glad I was there, and that's another chalk on my bedpost.
Well, Kevin, I just want to say thanks very much for doing that today, and we'll be in touch again.
Super.